Hello, folks. This is Steve AB4L. I want to show you something about this story. Nothing in this episode is a promotion, nor is it a recommendation. Now, right at the moment, this is the lead on slashdot.org News for Nerds. Barracuda, it's a company, urges replacing, not patching, its email security gateways. It excerpts from this article. I think this was published today. I was reading about it on another site yesterday. Now get this. You can see a picture of the device that they're talking about. The Barracuda Email Security Gateway 900 appliance. It's not often that a zero-day vulnerability, a zero-day is the bad boys have been exploiting something to get in, and we didn't know about it. Barracuda, on May 19th, Barracuda identified that malicious traffic was taking advantage of a previously unknown vulnerability in its email security gateway devices. And on May 20th, the company pushed a patch for the flaw to all affected devices. So that means you have a company, let's say you're a hospital. You have email coming in. You want to keep the bad stuff out. So you buy one of these, and at the internet entranceway, because it is devices somewhere in a room, you put one of these, and all traffic, at least coming in, goes through this. If it's email, this opens it and checks it for malware. An example of what the device might do, or a device similar to this, you get an email and your company is so intent on security that if there's any links to click on in your email, the device has already done it to see if there's a problem with it. So your email may be, there was a link here, but it's bad, and you can't click on it. I'm giving you an idea of what devices like this do. It's able to look at attachments. Oh, there's an attachment to have a picture, in the email. Except it's bad stuff, and when your computer opens it, it infects your machine. I'm giving you a feeling for what this does. Well, patches, which Microsoft, as an example, issues every month by the dozens, security patches, and occasionally pushes patches out to everybody that makes any kind of contact with, call back to Microsoft, no matter what the reason. They know you're an active Windows computer. They then initiate something to force certain kinds of updates onto your machine because it is so critical, they can't wait. And that's kind of what we're talking about here, is about what happened. So this Barracuda Networks email security gateway is compromised by somebody. Security gateway compromised by somebody unknown since last year. Since last year. October 2022 is the earliest they can definitely speak to, but it might be earlier than that. And then, like the next day after announcing the patch, Barracuda urges replacing, not patching, its email security gateways. Because they figured out what the bad guys actually did, and apparently they got it into what's known as the firmware. When you turn your computer on, when you turn your cell phone on, when you turn your car on, there's a computer in there that goes through a routine called a boot up before to start the electronic device so that it then can jump to the computer program that, like whether it's Windows or to run your ignition, or inside of this, when you turn it on, the firmware makes sure that the system's running correctly and it is running the programs it's supposed to. If there's a power out for a few seconds and it restarts, it reboots from the firmware. The firmware may do other things too, like accept updates, call home. You notice they said that they force-fed the patch to all of their devices in the world. So there's something in this that calls home to Barracuda. Like every Windows computer calls home to Microsoft under the table. Telemetry. Well, the question is, how many of these things are there out there, and how much do they cost? Barracuda Email Security Gateway 900. This is the first time I'm looking at this page. Barragard.com. There it is. Keep your email-borne threats out of your network. Barracuda Premier Partner, so they're an authorized seller. Let's add one to the cart. Barracuda Email Security Gateway Appliance 900 per user license. Pardon me. No minimum, must purchase according to the total number of users on the device. Includes advanced threat protection subscription. Oh, I was talking about the firmware. How is it able to check for malware? Well, it does it apparently about the same way as when I run the malware checking software on my computer every Friday. And that Microsoft Windows keeps running in the background as I'm using this computer also. Pardon my... I've got an extension in my browser called Malwarebytes Browser Guard. Malwarebytes. Share anonymous detection and device data with Malwarebytes. If something comes in through the browser that it isn't sure about, hasn't seen before, it'll send a copy back to them. This doesn't cost me anything. But you see how if I use it in my browser, it has eyes and ears everywhere in the world? One of them being where my computer is going. I'm just explaining what's at stake here. The 900 has a list. Now they've got it crossed out. Call for lowest price. List price $35,800. Our price $34,010. Call for lowest price. Now I wonder what the price is going to be now. Barracuda Energizer update for, so there's some way of updating it if you already have it to a what? Renewal only, Barracuda Email Security Gateway Appliance 900 Energize Update subscription 1 year, $26,000. Now, if you have a large, let's say you have a skyscraper and it's Goldman Sachs. You think they don't have this? What's $26,000 or $50,000 a year to keep malware out of them? They're a multi-billion-dollar a day business. Do you get the scale of things? That might sound like a lot of money. But wait a minute. What did it say over here? Barracuda urges replacing, not patching, its email security gateways. So they're saying everybody in the world has got one of these. You need to buy a new one right now. What do you think about that? What do you think about that? The reason why I'm doing this is I've never heard of this before. Now, I actually read this article earlier. Barracuda says ESG appliances must be replaced immediately. So Krebs is looking at the same stuff as Bleeping Computer, and the reason why I didn't do it earlier is that I was reading this article and I was trying to find the notification where Barracuda was actually saying that, and I couldn't find it in this article. Now, this is Barracuda speaking. We are committed to securing your data. June 6th. Action notice. Impacted ESG appliances must be immediately replaced regardless of patch version level. If you have not replaced your appliance after receiving notice in your user interface, you can sit on your computer here. You're the system security manager. You can log into the device. Contact support now. Barracuda's remediation recommendation at this time is full replacement of the impacted ESG. And then they got a long history of what their findings were. Okay? So those other guys have got it right. Now here's the key question. I'm trying to find out how many are there I'm just trying to find out how many there are. Without any tuning, the Barracuda email security gateway offers a 95% spam accuracy rate with a 0.01 false positive. eBay. Barracuda email security gateway 900, 2 times Xenon, no hard drive. So here's one that's used and a little bit stripped down. So you can buy these like this for $400. But you have to pick it up in Goffstown, New Hampshire. Otherwise, you pay $80 for shipping. Used, excellent condition. The device has been tested to power on properly. CMOS has been reset. CMOS is where the firmware is. I'm looking to see if there's any more being offered besides that. No hard drive in it. Tested and guaranteed working. This device has been tested to power on properly. CMOS has been reset to default settings. What's included? Just the gateway machine itself. Does not include the power adapter or any additional cables, parts, or accessories. DDR4 RAM, Xenon processor, ARG Tech. Who knows where they are? I'm still looking to see if anybody else is selling one of these. Seems like it's the only one. There's a lot of other edge-type devices. Barracuda backup server, $49. Backup server, $199. Okay. But what I asked it was, how many are there? See, this is Malwarebytes, I showed you. This is updated May 30th. Not that long ago, Barracuda Networks patches 0-day invulnerability. Update May 31st. Barracuda. So they know it's being. So this is not even up to date. Malwarebytes is not up to date on this one. Now, the reason why you want to wander around here is to give you a feeling for I don't remember if it was earlier this year or late last year, I did a series on Log4j, which is a Java-based software that runs in like a third of the websites of the world behind the scenes. Do you think those all have been patched? Because every now and then these guys have another article about another company that got into trouble because they weren't keeping up with paying attention to patching. It wasn't that the bad boys had overcome the patch. It's that people just don't patch. Do you keep your computer up to date? Your home computer? Do you do it? Do you check every week? How about your browser? But I still want to know how many there are. On June 6th, Barracuda suddenly, that's the way, a wholesale rip out and replace, not patch affected. And then the security analyst at Rapid7 saying This is fairly stunning. Oh, there it is. There it is. We got what we need. We want to. How much did they say the device cost? If you go to these guys, it's above 30,000 each. Each. We'll do the arithmetic. So this person at Rapid7 Security something called this remarkable turn of events fairly stunning and said there appears to be roughly 11,000 ESG devices still connected to the internet worldwide. The pivot from patch to total replacement, quoting, of affected devices is fairly stunning and implies the malware the threat actors deployed somehow achieves persistence at a low enough level that even wiping the device won't eradicate attacker access. Barracuda said the malware was identified on a subset of appliances that allowed the attacker persistent backdoor access to devices, and that evidence of data exfiltration and then this guy, who's a researcher at University of Berkeley, says that it's likely that the malware was able to corrupt the underlying firmware that powers the ESG devices in some irreparable way. Well, you know, I was speaking of a major name brand investment bank. You know, they transact billions every year, or like, I'm just thinking of the world's largest commercial bank like Wells Fargo. They're transacting billions of dollars every day across millions of accounts. They're fairly far flung. They have branch offices. Do you think each one might have a machine like that? Can you? Oh, I said I was going to do the numbers. 11,000. I should be able to do that in my head. Is that 66 million or is it higher? 11,000 times how much was it? 33? Yeah, 35,000. 33,000. That was the number I used. $363 million. Drop in the bucket. Do you think that Barracuda has that many ready to go? My mechanic, who has his own garage down the quarter mile down the road, I just had my brakes done. He did my brakes. I know where he got the parts from by way of a store in Ramseur. It's just 4 miles that way. But we couldn't get it done when he expected to because he couldn't get the parts. Now, I have an older car, but what it was is, now this is, I'm going to give you a feeling for what the shape the world's in, and then I'm going to ask about this. The reason why they couldn't get it to that store for the parts to be delivered here is because they can't find enough people to deliver the parts. And I didn't ask him exactly what he meant about it, but I think he meant it's a name brand auto parts store, and somewhere in North Carolina they've got a main warehouse, and then the individual locality stores. There's several different auto parts suppliers in Asheboro, for example, I can think of it. I can think of 5 brand names. They compete against each other. They each. I know that for Advance, their warehouse is in Asheville. We're in Asheboro. One of their North Carolina warehouses is in Asheville because we ordered a part. They said it would be in the next day, so I had to get from Asheville to Asheboro. I could drive there in 2 hours. I want to give you, okay, but what if you don't have enough people to make the deliveries? And think of how big the state is and how many stores there would be. Now that's just car parts. What's the story going to be with this thing? And their customers are far flung around the world. Think about it. I just gave it in a mundane example that still from the COVID thing, we have disruption. What's it going to be with this? And they're saying, replace them now. You saw it on their own website. Contact support now. Do they have 11,000? I don't know. This big web around the world has a lot of problems, so to speak. I'm wondering if it'll ever just completely fall on its face. Let me show you what I mean. Microsoft OneDrive down worldwide following claims of distributor denial of service attack. If I go into my computer's stuff, Microsoft OneDrive is advertised on a Windows 10 machine as your protection against ransomware, because you can have your valuable stuff backed up to the Microsoft OneDrive, which is their cloud service and storage. Who knows where it is in the world? Microsoft OneDrive down worldwide following. And then there's been this stuff about Microsoft. What's the other service they have? Where you do your spreadsheets and stuff? There seem to be more and more of these reports. Let's check on this right now. Oh, Microsoft 365. And then I heard that the other day that Outlook Mail was down. I'm just picking on Microsoft. What's going on? Down detector. Now, I said Microsoft OneDrive. I did this before, and it takes me to Microsoft 365. So I think they're almost synonymous. Anything you're doing on Microsoft 365 is actually happening on. So let's look at the report. Microsoft 365 outage was reported in the last 24 hours. We're at about 3 a.m. now, correct, my time. So yesterday during the day there was. Now, not everybody who's having trouble goes to Down Detector and files a report. But look what happened. It definitely is going on. Worldwide. 11,000 of them for 35,000 each? Can Barracuda afford to give the machines away? Are there going to be lawsuits? What were they promising? And yet the bad boys got in. But have you noticed what's going on? Steve A. Beforio just shaking his head. As long as YouTube's there, we're okay, right? Saying see you in 73.